So yeah, a year that I will never forget. ...2025. So this is a video for me more than anyone. I do these occasionally just for me to look back on in the future of where I've been where I am at that moment in time, looking back and seeing how the business has progressed, kind of documenting things. So yeah, but if anyone else takes some value from what I'm going to talk about, great. But yeah, this is for me more than anyone. So I want to talk about, it's December the 11th now, 2025, and I really want to go through where the business has been at different stages throughout this year and how it's affected me, the things that I've learned, and just, yeah, this has been quite a year, personally and business. So we had our first daughter, Eva, in 2024, July. So a big chunk of 2025 has been getting used to dad life whilst, growing a business. So yeah, it's been quite a year. So let me get into it. So I've got this all planned out. I've taken a bit of time bullet pointing these things out to keep me on track. First a little personal achievement. So I received my purple belt in Jiu-jitsu earlier this week, a couple of days ago. So that's something I'm proud of. That's after 3.5 years of pretty much consistent training, 2 to 3 to 4 times a week. Not 4 times a week anymore, but at least when I started. But yeah, I try and go to jiu-jitsu like 3 times a week. Sometimes can't make that, but yeah, consistently training for 3.5 years, received my purple belt. So that's something I'm proud of. So what I'm going to go through here is, yeah, obviously what I outlined, where we've been through the business, things that I've learned, stages that we've been at, difficulties, struggles, positives, negatives, all of that. And I'm going to try and keep these details and this information in a logical time frame, like as the business has progressed throughout the year. So going back to the end of 2024, we've got a proven product, a proven service, proven business model, and getting people real results. Like everyone that goes through our training, goes through our program, gets our help, whether it's career development or business growth, like everyone that goes through it gets the result that they want. So moving into 2025, I was extremely confident with what we've got in terms of our training, our coaching, our service, our product. I've made a note here. What's really interesting though is like you learn so much about people and all different types of people when you're speaking to multiple people every day. And some people are so strange. It's really interesting. Just going back to the point, like people that invest in our program and they go through the guidance and the training and put the work in, they do really well. They get the result that they want. But there are some people that obviously don't, and there's some people that don't do the work, and it's a bit silly really, because there's no point investing. We're not cheap. There's no point investing a substantial amount of money if you're not going to make sure that you get a return on it. And like with what we do, we can't obviously do the work for you. It's about you transforming yourself, your skill set, so you can advance your career or grow your business ultimately. And we obviously help with the career progression and the business growth and all the things associated with those things. But ultimately, this is about developing a skill set that they once understood and learned, no one can take away from you, and then you continue to leverage that throughout your life and continuing to get a return on investment. And what you learn when you're in this space is some people are very strange. And so obviously some people don't do the work, and sometimes life stuff happens, whatever, that they can't foresee, that just stops them. But like in this example that I'm talking about, this one specific person, like he invested a substantial amount with us and he never even joined the program. He never even stepped foot into the program. And we were chasing this guy for quite a while, couple of months, like, where are you, mate? Like, are you joining? Like, what's going on? And he completely ghosted us. So it's just amazing. So if you're thinking about, joining us, investing in yourself, just if you think that's going to happen, where I don't know what's going on in this guy's head, but there's just no point joining. There's no point. If you think that's you, don't waste your money if you're not going to be the one that actually even steps foot inside of the program and starts getting training and guidance and support. Like, just don't. Like, we don't want you to just burn cash. Like, if your intentions aren't there to actually even step foot in the training, just don't even have a conversation with us. There's no point, So that was an interesting thing that I learned, just about how people are willing to kind of, I don't know what's going on, but there's people out there that do these sort of things, which is amazing. So another thing, so this is the next point. So at the back end of 2024, like early 2025, I invested the most I'd ever invested in training, coaching, mentorship. So I invested 35k in a business mastermind, really, from a business and guys that are running a similar business to me, that are like 20 times larger than me, financially speaking, have been doing it for like 8 to 10 years and, are just like way ahead of me and can help me, pave the way and help me learn from their mistakes and train me. And so I can ultimately get to where they are quicker. That's the goal. You pay financially to reduce the time frame at which it's going to take you, because you're going to pay one way or another. You're going to either pay financially or you're going to pay through time. So what is more valuable to you? And I think the longer you're in business, or perhaps the older that you get, you realize that time is the valuable resource, not money. Money comes and goes. You can always earn more money, but you can't get back more time. So I'm happy to trade 35k for, the knowledge, the information, the experience, the perspective. This is a key one. The perspective that these guys have, being that they've been doing it for 4 times as long as me, and like they're 20 times bigger than me. But it just makes me think, like, if I'm going to invest, doesn't matter if it's 35k or 1k or whatever, like, I want to make sure that I'm going to get a return on that investment. So it's just like, whatever, if you make an investment, please make sure that you're going to do the work and, want to get a return on it, or not. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't affect us in any way. It's just a shame. It's just not necessary. If you're not going to put the work in, there's just no point. So maybe think about that before making a commitment, like certainly financially. But anyway, back to this mastermind. So this business mastermind. So I've been in it for almost a year, and I've obviously learned so much from it. And one of the things that you realize is it's very much like when you get to where you've kind of like you already know the skill set. You've got the skill set, whether it be technical, whether it be business, like, and I mean like skill sets in terms of like sales, marketing, like you're always developing these things. But when you've kind of got the fundamentals and you're going through the motions and you're doing the work, then it really comes down to decision making as time goes on. So this is where, and you don't really realize it at the time, and you're like, am I getting a return on this investment? Because you're not, at this higher level, you're not really getting like training courses so much. Like with this specific mastermind, you get access to all of their training, which is like the lower tier products, but it's more getting access to the founders, the guys, their executive team. So it's more, what you're paying for is perspective and to help you make decisions. And then it's hard to kind of relate, like, well, am I getting value from being in this group of people with these other business owners as well, that you can also learn from their experiences, but from these guys. And so you've got to value their, you got to put a value on their perspective, not so much the content and the training, but their perspective and how they can help you make decisions. So that's really what you're investing in at that sort of level. And then the tricky thing is that, again, to see sort of the value equation and what you're getting back in terms of return, there's always a big lag, or a lag of some time frame, depending on the decision that you make, and then the implementation of that decision. There's going to be a time lag. So you make a decision, they help you and guide you make a decision, and then you implement, and then you don't see the result of those decisions for quite some time. So it's a tricky one. So I guess like the point I'm making around that is you put value into people's perspectives, and they're not always going to know things specifically for your industry and what you're doing, but they can certainly guide based on their experiences. And you've got to also think about all these, you almost become unaware of these decisions that they're helping you make. So you've got to kind of like take a step back and think, well, if I wasn't around this group of people, if I wasn't able to ask these questions, where would I be? What would I be doing? So you almost take it for granted. And I feel like then, I'm kind of waffling with this, but hopefully I'm making a point of like, you're paying for decisions, really, like decisions and perspectives and guidance on that. At these higher level things. Now let's just go back to like the business, and I've titled this section struggles. And like the struggle that we've had, like the first struggle was finding the right offer and the way of positioning what we've got in terms of like the product and service to the right niche. So as I mentioned at the start, end of 2024, like we know we've got great product in terms of the training, the service, like we're getting people good results, but like what is the right way to position that in terms of an offer? What are we offering people? And it's just taught me this whole process. And this whole year really has just taught me so much in terms of how important your offer is. And this applies to any business. And I think in engineering, electrical controls, manufacturing, all of this sort of this industry, people don't really think about their offer. They just think of their service. And like I've talked about this before in other YouTube videos, so I'm not going to get too involved with it. But like, your service is part of your offer, but like your offer is so much more, and just how important they are. So what we kind of cast a very broad net to start with, and by the end of 2024, like we knew this wide net was attracting certain types of people, business owners or people that want to develop their careers, electricians, engineers, technicians, etc. So we cast a very broad net. But then the problem of that is when you want to then start doing like targeted outbound marketing or running ads, when you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one, and you can't really attract your ideal client, your perfect prospect. So this was a real struggle trying to work out who are we going to serve. And I actually had this problem when I first joined these guys that I'm in their mastermind with. The reason that I first joined them was to actually get clarity on my offer. And they helped me initially with this kind of broad offer. But then as you start to scale, you want to narrow and then develop the product, the service specifically for that narrow market. Because the deeper you can go into that niche, that market, understanding their problems, you can provide like better solutions and just provide a better service and get people better results. So I'd rather do that, serve a much smaller market, but like be really, really good at doing that. So we had to start focusing in. So we went from broad, like attracting everyone with something like, I think our messaging was something along the lines of break into controls, automation, BMS in like, 12 weeks or something like that. And then what we did, the group that I'm in, they're really kind of like, they focus on B2B offers, business to business, rather than, B2C, because I'm not going to get into all of it. Maybe I will a bit later on, but like B2B is just far better than B2C. Like there's lots of complications and it's a different type of prospect that you're dealing with when it's B2C. There's more of them, definitely, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Get into that later maybe. But B2B was definitely the way to go. So then what we did was we repositioned everything that we had and made it relevant to B2B, like businesses. But what we did in looking back is we completely over-egged the offer. And this is the thing, and I'm sure you've seen this in all different industries, when people, and it wasn't wrong, and it wasn't like not honest. It was just when you position things from a sales marketing perspective, you can kind of over-egg it and go overboard where it almost seems too good to be true, and then it switches people off. And that was kind of the feeling that I had on reflection of when we reposition what we have specifically for a B2B market. And it took me maybe a couple of months to realize that. And it wasn't untrue what we were claiming. I think it was something along the lines of electrical contractors it was basically business owners, whether they're electrical contractors, HVAC business owners, increase your profits by 500% in 6 months by bringing controls, automation in-house, something like that. And I think the thing that was a little bit too good to be true was like increase your profits by 500%, 400 or 500%. And that's not untrue, because if you think like this, and I worked this out, because if you take a standard electrical contracting business, they're doing like a 5 to 10% net margin. Like that's probably the best that they're going to get. Some people are doing less than that. And if you can learn the skills in controls, automation, BMS, smart home, and build a successful business there, then your margins can increase to like 25% net margin, 30% net margin. So if you go from like 5 to 25, that's like a 4 to 5x increase, which actually works out to be like 400%, 500% increase. So it was based on that, standard electrical firm, learning the skills to then go into controls, automation, BMS, smart home, and then get to those net margins. But it just sounded a little bit too good to be true in hindsight. And then and I can't prove that. That's just the feeling that I had on reflection. Then the other thing was that the way that we were doing lead gen and like advertising and letting people know what we did, so people could come to us and see if we can help them, was just through social media. So mostly YouTube, where you're watching this, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our free school community. And what we realized is 80% of the people that come through from these channels are ultimately consumers and people that, generally speaking, 80%, people that want to learn technical skills mostly to advance their careers. They weren't necessarily self-employed contractors or business owners. So that and this kind of ties into some of the other things that I'm going to talk about, but this was like a real struggle for like 2-3 months. Like we repositioned the offer, and then we didn't really have we didn't attract enough people because we positioned it wrong. We hadn't really analysed the market using our current marketing system. So that was when we got to our B2B offer, and then we realised, this is a situation now. What we really need to do is we need 2 offers, really. We need a B2B offer, but we need to package it and position it differently, remove that too good to be true 500% profit margin thing. So we changed that offer on the front end, but also on the back end as well. Well, now it's more like, bring controls in-house within 6 weeks and like, let us help you add 100K in revenue in 6 months. That's the B2B offer. And then we've also dialed in, or actually made a whole new offer for the B2C market, which are people that want to learn the technical skills to then advance their career. So I think that offers something like, electricians, technicians, engineers, learn controls, automation, BMS, and change your career in 12 weeks or something like that. So that's what we worked on. So now we've got 2 offers, and that's perfect for us now. And that's only something that we've recently done and tested and been through, but like there was a lot of work and back end changes that had to be done to achieve that, which I think I'm going to get into in a bit. But it just highlighted to me just how important it is to get your front end offer and the way that you're positioning things correct in business. So that was a good lesson, and I wouldn't necessarily advise people to have 2 offers, which we're going to get into in a second, but because it adds complexity, and there's loads of things that you don't see until you've done it that you're like, oh, 2 offers, that's fine. But ultimately you're speaking to two different types of people, which, well, yeah, we're going to get into it. So yeah, offers, that was the first thing, broad offer, then a B2B offer, then realizing, well, we need a B2B and a B2C offer. So what we ultimately did is we had our original offer and training package and coaching, and we kind of kept that, and we repositioned it on the front end to the B2B market. So, and this is our control system specialist program, specifically for businesses and self-employed contractors that want to learn the skill set, bring it in-house, or grow their businesses in this industry. So that was mostly done, but we had to do like a few little tweaks here and there on the back end, develop some more training. And then what we had to do is we had to basically create a whole new offer for the B2C market, helping people develop their careers and land new positions as like controls engineers, BMS engineers. So we essentially created a whole new offer, which is now called Control Specialist. So a hell of a lot of work that went into that. So like restructuring things, creating a whole new program, a whole new school community. We had to create new training content. There's lots of back end things that come into play. Like, so a simple example is like when someone joins us, we then trigger an automation, like a workflow automation, that will send them the agreement. They read through that, and then they sign it if they're happy with everything. And then that triggers like another email to come through to them to then give them all the login details and how to get started in the program. So like there's loads of things like this where we had to kind of like create 2 of them. And then, as you scale, then there's 2 things when you're training people that people need to be aware of, where then human error, mistakes can come in. They might choose the wrong one for the new guys that's coming into the program. And then it just causes problems. So this is why just reducing complexity is so important if you can, because you just don't think about all these knock-on effects and potential problems by adding new things. So I feel it's so much better to remove things than add things if you can, because it just creates complexity and future possibility of things going wrong through not necessarily any fault of their own, but just human error. We don't do everything perfect. So yeah, you get the point on complexity, but also split messaging as well in terms of like your marketing and doing content. And like a good example is our email newsletter. So we send out emails like a few times a week, and this, like, we can't just completely align with business owners or people that want to develop their careers. So our messaging, our emails that go out, they're not 100% focused on this avatar or this avatar. They kind of like, sometimes we do an email for businesses, sometimes we do an email for career people, and sometimes we kind of like blend the 2 of them in there. So it adds that complexity as well in terms of like your marketing, your marketing. And then, going another step further than that, like your whole sales process as well. Like it's different. You're talking to a different person. Yeah. So like you want one avatar, ideally, because it just simplifies things, makes things more streamlined. You get a better understanding of that avatar, so you can firstly understand them, but then make sure that what you have can actually help them and solve their problem. And if you've got like we've got like 5 different avatars, generally speaking, that can be a little bit tricky to navigate. And then, training new people on all these different avatars, it's just, you get the point. It just adds all these extra variables, adds complexity, things that can go wrong and break, things that you also need to check as a business owner and test, which just equals more stress, as I'm sure you can imagine. Like all these things, especially in the early days before, when they're new and you are testing things and there's all these teething problems, it's exactly like delivering a control system. Where you have to kind of do an on-site, you do like a factory acceptance test in the workshop, and you think it's all good, but then you get it on site and things change and you've got to test it, before you can hand it over to the customer. There's all these things that it's same in business, But anyway, that's kind of like the end of the offer section. Now, like we have 2 absolutely solid offers that I know 100% that we can deliver on and get our clients, results pretty damn quickly, providing that they go through the program and they put in the work. So yeah, really, we've got through that struggle now. We've got two amazing offers for the B2B market and the B2C market, which is great in terms of opportunity for us as a business, because we can help businesses, but we can also help, individuals with their careers. So yeah, that was a real struggle that we got through, but we're there now, and which is great. So now we are ready to scale. Okay, which kind of brings me on to the next bit. But you don't want to start scaling before, all of this is tried and tested. You've got people real results, your offer, whatever it is, works, delivers, whatever that offer is, whether it's like you're providing control services, smart home services, electrical services, or you're delivering training, coaching, similar to us. You kind of need it to be proven. You need to be happy with it. You don't want to be making too much changes to the core offer once you're starting to scale. You can obviously develop it and iterate it, but like the front end offer, the positioning, who you're targeting kind of needs to be decided before you start scaling. So yeah, so now this brings me into like the next struggle or lesson or combination of the two. So to scale, you need SOPs or SOPs, so standard operating procedures. And this is something that I was completely unaware of before joining this business mastermind and seeing how they do things. I think for smaller businesses, this is just something we're just completely unaware of as small business owners until you get insight to how businesses should run and how they run, how you scale, from bigger businesses. So standard operating procedures and the importance of them. The thing is, like, you think, right, I've got to start getting out all this stuff that's in my head. Like, as a founder, as the owner of the business, like, you're the first person, and if you start taking on more people, to scale a business, you need people. So you need to start imparting what you know into other people in the most efficient way. And the most efficient way to do that is to actually get it documented on a piece of paper and almost produce trainings. Like, that's ultimately what standard operating procedures are. They're like, well, clues in the name. They're operating procedures, but they're step by step how you do that gets someone trained up from not knowing how to run this process or operate this procedure to actually being able to do it. And the best way to do it is make it stupid simple, step by step on a piece of paper that they can follow. But then it's like the time, you've got to think of the time and energy involved with producing them. And that's the first thing, because no one wants to do this. This is the thing, they're incredibly boring and it takes a lot of mental energy and thought doing it. And then you want to make sure that if I'm going to create an SOP, I want it to actually be used by the most amount of people. Because you're thinking, right, I want to make sure that I get a return on this time and energy that I put into creating this document. You're going to get a return by, the most people using it and utilizing it. Okay, so then you've got to think about, well, what type of person within the business is going to, let me just think about this. You're gonna start scaling. So what role is going to enable you to scale? And more of that role, more of that person is going to enable you to increase the business in whatever way that is. So you've got to think of that person when you're writing these SOPs. So for example, if you're an electrical contractor, it might be worth writing SOPs, standard operating procedures, for the electricians that you're going to bring on board. Okay. And you've also got to be thinking in terms of you as a business owner getting time back. So you write these SOPs to hand over to an electricians so you can get back your time. So you no longer have to do the electrician role and you don't have to spend time training them. You've already put the work in, they can just refer to the standard operating procedure. Okay, so you kind of imparted that onto your first electrician, but as you scale, you're going to have another electrician join. Well, then they can just go through the same SOPs and again, and maybe one of them leaves and you have to replace them. So then they can just go through the standard operating procedures. So you've invested time and energy once getting this done, and you don't have to go through this process yourself on a one-on-one basis, because you've documented it. Okay, so that's kind of how you got to think about this. Now, for our business, for me to get back my time, now initially, like when I first started, it was just me, obviously doing absolutely everything. And then the first person, or the first thing that I needed taking off my hands, because it was taking up all my time and I needed to get back some time. The first thing was video editing and social media stuff. Now, this was back in the day where I wasn't even aware of standard operating procedures, so there was no SOPs there. But that type of role is quite a creative role. Video editing and social media. Obviously, there's some operational things around that, but like I didn't create any standard operating procedures for TJ, who now does that role for me. The video editing and the social media. Then the next role, it was kind of operations, like lots of operational stuff within the business, which is what Jen does for us now, amongst other things. Now with that, this is where I was more aware of standard operating procedures. So I did create some SOPs around that, but like operational stuff changes quite a lot within businesses, and you don't normally have multiple, like both of these roles, like video editing, social media, and operations. It's not a role where you just where you have like hundreds of video editors that's going to allow you to scale, or hundreds of operation directors that's going to enable you to scale. It's just like kind of a one or two person role. Maybe they have an assistant, but it's not worth it, or it wasn't worth me creating a load of SOPs for it. But the key role for me, like electricians for a electrician business or electrical contracting business, the first key role, which is really where we're at now, that's going to increase like the amount of those people that we need, and it's going to enable us to scale, are salespeople and sort of building out a sales team. So I spent a considerable amount of time thinking through all of this and getting out of my head all of the stuff that I know about sales and helping. Basically, what you want to do is you want to be able to help your new people, whatever role that they're in, get up to speed, get onboarded, and be within KPI, like within the key performance indicators that you set as quickly as possible. So they're happy, you're happy, but ultimately they're profitable. And they can sustain themselves and they can contribute to the business without taking huge amounts of your time getting them up to speed. So I spent a hell of a lot of time for not only putting together these SOPs and these trainings, but like, how am I going to structure this within my business, within our Google Drive, so I can kind of like, a new person joins, I can just copy all of that and then just put it into their drive within our Google Workspace. So just a hell of a lot of thought and planning that just took a lot of mental brain power and thinking and stuff. But that's another thing that I did this year is putting together SOPs for our salespeople and sales team. So this was a massive task, incredibly boring. And I did this probably over a 2-month period on and off. So that was a massive relief to get that done. But that is the thing. It is such a relief. Like, once you've done that you don't really have to worry about onboarding people and getting them trained up. And all that mental energy and thought and time you're going to save. And like the comments that I've had and the feedback that I've had from sales guys that do join us, like, it's so helpful for them. They're really grateful for it. They don't want to be a pain and pester me, so it's so worth it, and it's good for everyone. You as a business owner, but also, the new people that you bring on board. And it's all clear because you as a business owner, you've got so many things going on, so many plates spinning, that you forget things. You can't keep all of this information in your head. So it's nice to actually think through it, how you want things done, how things should be done that work really well. You can put that all into a training, into a document, and then it's there. It's in paper. You can kind of forget about it, and if there's any questions around these things, you can just say, yeah guys, just reference the SOP, or you can remind yourself of what that thing is when you can go back to the SOP and refresh your memory. Standard operating procedures, as boring, as dull as they are absolutely essential in enabling you to buy back time as a business owner, but also scale the business. Now, this next section I've titled Growing Pains. And this really has been, the whole year has been like trying to grow and how painful that's been. And it sounds stupid, but it's so true because So let me sort of go through this. So once those initial sales SOPs were finished, we then looked at taking on our first sales rep. Okay. He came on board in March time and lasted about a month and a half. And the reason that he only lasted a month and a half, and like it was very amicable between both of us, like I quickly realized that his calendar, like the amount of people that he had the opportunity to talk to, like a lot of businesses in this industry, without a developed, dialed in client acquisition system, it was feast and famine. Like, so some weeks he would have like 6 people to speak to every day, and then other weeks he'd have like 1 or 2 or no people, and it was just unpredictable, up and down. And like salespeople, they like talking to people, they like trying to solve problems and see if these people that they're speaking to are good fits for the program, and obviously if they are, get them in if they can, and if it's a good fit for them and the client wants to. So it was that feast and famine, trying to get enough people for the sales guys to speak to, and we quickly realised that they're just not going to. Then sales guys aren't going to stay around if that's happening. Now, what I didn't realise back then is there's 2 different types of salespeople. You can kind of have like an inbound salesperson where they're quite lazy and they don't do much work, which is fine for some businesses at certain levels that have got like this consistent lead flow, where ultimately the salesperson just waits for qualified people to land on their calendar and then they just sit and take calls all day. They don't have to do any outbound prospecting. And this was that guy. What I should have really realized back then is I should have looked for a salesperson that had outbound experience as well, outbound prospecting experience as well, where they can kind of generate their own business if necessary, so they can take inbound calls, generated through our marketing, our lead gen systems, but also if they weren't full, they would take the initiative and start, making cold calls or connecting with people on LinkedIn or whatever it might be. So that was kind of like, I just didn't really think about that at the time. So anyway, we just were like, look, it's clearly you want a full calendar every day. This is up and down. This is our fault as a business, really. So yeah, like we parted ways and that was that really. But that taught me 2 things about the different type of salespeople. But also it made me realize quickly that the mechanism that we were using to generate leads that ultimately then translates into sales and then translates into revenue was unpredictable and uncontrollable, which is like, you obviously don't want that in a business. You don't want to be reliant on a system that you have no control over and is completely unpredictable. Okay. So that became like the highest priority. We need to figure this out. And like the mechanism, the lead gen system that we had ultimately was social media. So YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and then through our school community, and then kind of word of mouth and referral. But we don't really have a referral system, little bit of word of mouth. So most of it was just down to social media. Now you can argue why you do more videos, you make better videos, more people will see them, etc., etc. So you could argue that there is some control and predictability there, but it's just not like it's not basically. I can't just think up a video idea and be like, yep, that's going to generate us another like 10 calls a month predictably. Like it's so, and this is, when I speak to a lot of business owners, it's similar to them. Like they're just relying on word of mouth and referral. So how can you ever grow a business if you haven't got a predictable, controllable lead gen system. That like the more inputs you put in, the more outputs you get out. Or, you know, if you want to reduce it, you just reduce the inputs and it reduces the outputs. And it's kind of like, there's a relationship there. With what we were doing with social media, there's no relationship. It's just like, you know, I think you get my point. Yeah, so that taught us that that's high priority. If we want to scale, we need to sort that out with the predictable, controllable inputs and outputs. So what that might look like, what does that look like? Well, cold calling, cold DMs, running ads, cold email, that kind of thing. So like if I do 100 cold calls and I do this for long enough, I work out on average, if I do 100 cold calls a day, I know that I get like 25 conversations with people. And then of those 25 conversations, let's say 8 of them are good conversations. And then of those 8 good conversations, like 4 people are interested in like having a proper conversation about how we might be able to help them. So I know if I do 100 cold calls, I can get like 4 people on the calendar. That's a simple way to explain it. So that led us down the route of trying to find a predictable, controllable lead gen system. And this was the bulk of this year. From March, when we realized this lesson and our sales rep left, March all the way through to basically now, or November, so about a month ago, we've been trying multiple lead gen strategies to try and work out what is the best one for us and our business with the resources that we have, with the people that we have that made sense. So we've always, pretty much from the start, even the back end of 2024, we've always done cold outbound direct messaging on LinkedIn. We've got a cold outbound direct message system on LinkedIn that does okay, that we probably could scale, but to scale that, we would need to get what's known as a sales development rep. And basically, I didn't think it was worth the time investing in finding, they're called SDRs for short, so sales development rep, like just scaling that up, because they're very flaky, these types of people, generally speaking. It's quite low pay, it's a lot of boring work. And I was just like, I don't want to manage, with where we're at the business at the moment, like I don't want to manage those people. So what Jen has been doing, she's been running that system since like, I don't know, September 2024. So we kind of know that is a proven system, but it was enough to get some calls per month. But it wasn't something that I wanted to scale. It was just, I felt like too much of a headache to scale because of the reasons I've just outlined. And there's certain KPIs that we set. So like out of like, I think the KPI is 1 or 2% appointment booking rate. So if we reach out to like 100 people, similar to the cold call example, if we reach out to 100 people, connect with 100 people on LinkedIn, like we want 2%, 1%, so 1 or 2 people to book in for a call. That's kind of like the industry standard that we understand. And I didn't think that was a good enough KPI to warrant all of that effort and managing and people leaving and then having to hire new people and just all of that. I was like, nah, I'm not getting involved with that. So we just keep that ticking over in the background. Jen's running that. She manages that really well. She's got 2 accounts, mine and hers, and that's okay for now. But I don't want to scale it. It's not worth it. So then we looked at cold outbound SMS to call. And I spent a big chunk of time doing this. And by the way, the LinkedIn system works. It's a great system. But like for where we're at with the business, it's just not worth it. Like, but we've had clients come on board through that strategy. So it definitely works. Then we moved to the cold outbound SMS calling. And so what this is basically collecting data off Google of businesses like electrical businesses, HVAC businesses, finding their mobile numbers and then texting them like what we have to offer. And then if they respond positively and don't tell you to fuck off, then you give them a call and you kind of explain things further. This worked really, really well. We got so many good positive responses. But then there's a whole skill set within this. Like there's a whole skill set in cold calling, sales, where you're going from, and I think our process probably could have been developed in hindsight a little bit better with more touch points and warming people up. Because you got to think about this. We've just like reached out to these people cold. They're going about their business, and then we kind of make them an offer, and then they don't really have enough time to kind of like get familiar with us. So I think I would change that strategy slightly. But we had a lot of people interested and booking calls with us. But then the problem was our show up rate went from like, because we just focused all of our energy in doing this, we kind of disregarded other things. So we went from like 80% show up rate to then like 40% show up rate. So basically more than half of the people that booked calls with us didn't show up to have conversations, which also, you know, it fills your calendar, but then it stops other people who are serious booking in for a call. So it just fills up your calendar with people that aren't that serious. And that's really comes down to us not understanding them well enough. And that's what I mean by like the skill set in sales and qualifying them and kind of triaging them. So they either weren't interested, or, you know, they're busy people. We kind of contacted them out of the blue. Their priority is their business that they're running at the moment, and they're all over the place. A lot of these people were electrical contractors, electricians. It's like there's that you've got to factor in as well. But again, we ran this for I think 2 months, developed the whole system around this as well, which obviously took a lot of brain power and thinking and struggling. And I put together standard operating procedures as well to get a sales development rep on board, who was great. He was absolutely brilliant. But we realized again, like, is this a system that we want to run with the resources that we have at the moment? It's not really giving us the results that we were looking for. I haven't got the time to really develop it and learn it better. So yeah, we decided to kind of stop focusing on that and move on to the next one, which was cold outbound email. And this is something that we're still running with mixed results. And the reason I tried going down this route is one of the guys in the business mastermind that I'm in, he's doing incredibly well, and literally all of his appointments are coming from cold outbound email. So I was like, oh, there must be something to this, you know. And you think, well, sure, like you get like cold emails from people, everyone does, and like most people just ignore them, and you just think, well, that's never going to work. But it absolutely does work, and this guy's proof, and we're proof. So I then started developing and implementing a cold outbound email system. The issue with cold email is it's very, it's just very much based on where that person is at that specific time that you send an email. Like if they are struggling from a specific problem that you solve right then and there, and you appear at the right time, and they see that, then they're like, oh, and they get dragged into it. And so the guy who sort of told me about his system, he's basically a marketing agency and teaching people how to get leads and sales through the system that he runs. So basically like cold email. But he's reaching out to he's teaching marketing agencies how to do that. Okay, so he's like pretty much every marketing agency wants to know how to get their clients more clients. And this is kind of like another string to their bow. So he was doing really, really well with it, because every marketing agency wants to know how to get more clients, wants more systems. Whereas with our offer, you know, reaching out to electrical contractors, HVAC businesses, like, do you want to ultimately, have you considered bringing controls automation in-house, not subbing it out to contractors, etc.? Like, what percentage of those businesses are doing controls? What percentage of then those are subbing it out and want to bring it in-house? So it was like, looking back on it, we are so niche. You know, it's a lot of those emails they're not really going to land, and it's not going to be like land in the inbox of one of these business owners where they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly the problem that we've got, and I'm struggling through that problem right now. this has hit me just at the right time. Like, that just felt like it wasn't happening. But again, we had some pretty good conversations with people. I think we did have one sale through that, and we are still running it. Because I still haven't properly concluded what to do with that. So we'll probably continue running the remainder of the campaign that we've got. But the issue with it is there's a lot of tech complexity and tech setup with doing cold email, and like also lead sourcing as well, putting together like lists of emails and then all the verifications that you've got to do. And then if you want to like personalize the emails, you can do that with AI, and there's just loads of other tools and softwares and things you have to learn associated with cold email. And then like there's things that can go wrong, like your because you need to buy a load of different like or web domains to send emails from, and then they can start like being flagged as spam, and then you need to rotate them out and bring new ones in, and it's just a very complicated way of doing it. But it totally works. But I think it's very niche dependent. Or it's very niche dependent, but it's also very volume dependent. Like it's a volume game, and if you, so that's that again. So I'm like, I haven't decided on this, but is this something that we want to continue doing? I mean, now that it's set up and running, it pretty much runs itself. That's the nice thing about email. That's kind of what led me down the route of trying cold email, because obviously with direct messages, with cold calling, you actually need to be doing it yourself. Like there's no real automation to it. The nice thing about cold email is it's very much automated, which means that you can like, with these inputs and outputs, like if you send like, let's say 500 emails a day, and then you get like, let's say 10 positive responses, and then from that you get 2 booked calls to have conversations with people, from 500 emails a day to 2 book calls, that's controllable, that's predictable, which is nice. And you don't need someone like typing out all these 500 emails. You just need someone to respond to the people that respond, and then like book them in to a sales conversation. So I do like cold email for that reason, but there's a lot of complexity. Technically, you've got to iterate the copy that you use and look at the metrics. There's just a lot. Yeah, hopefully you get my point. Now, so I wasn't 100% convinced by any of those. So you can imagine from March all the way through to like November time, where we did find the thing that I think is going to be the thing. From March till November, what's that, like 6 months of struggling through, thinking that you've just learned a new system. You've learned about it, you've just implemented it, you've built a system around it, you've ran it, you've iterated it. Now you're actually like seeing the results of it, and you're like, this doesn't really feel like the one for us. And then so you're like, okay, let's try another system. This doesn't quite, you go through the same process. It doesn't feel like the one, and so on and so forth. And it's really debilitating, and it really like tests your patience. And it's just a struggle. And you start to lose hope. But I'm so glad that we've been through that, because now I know all the different strategies for cold client acquisition, and I know the systems, so I know them for future reference. I can help our clients implement them as well, because they're running, it's a similar model, but it's a different business. So we can help our guys implement all of those. So it was a real painful 6 months going through all of that, but I've learned all the systems, and I know what one's good for what situation. Now, moving into November, through speaking with people at this business mastermind, through listening to people that have like been there and done that and done things, they said, look, you should just start running ads. So we did some initial, so this is another thing that we need to learn. Facebook ads, Instagram ads, meta ads, basically. Is this going to work? Is this worth like learning? Because then the thing with this is you're actually, with these other systems, yes, there are some software charges. You're paying for like softwares and whatnot, but really you're paying through time. Whereas with Meta ads, you're paying through time, putting the creative together, doing the copy, creating the videos, etc. But you're also but you're also paying Facebook, Meta, to advertise for you. You're paying them to advertise on their platform. So I was a little bit nervous about it. But anyway, the long and short of it, we ran some initial tests in November, had some really good initial results, and I'm confident now that this is definitely the strategy that we're going to be using for something so niche with what we do. We're not just like a marketing agency would help you get more clients. We're very niche. So that's going to be the strategy that we're going to run moving forward into 2026. We're going to go all in on Meta ads, coupled, and this is what's going to make this system really good, because like ads are good and they're very targeted, and like the platforms can actually, I'm going to get into the pros and cons of Meta ads and Facebook in a second, but coupled with what we've done and have been doing since the start, which is like organic content on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So ads coupled with that, I think is going to be the winning strategy that's going to really enable us to scale. So yeah, moving into Meta ads. So look, we've got a proven offer. We've got real results. We've got client success stories. Like, we're good to go, really. Like, we've got everything established, ready to go. We got, evidence, social proof, system, offer, all of that. We've also got like a sales funnel, if you like, landing page with a video sales letter with copy on it, that then when people book a call with us, like all of that's set up on the back end. It sends them reminders. It's connected to our calendar system. We've got this system all developed, working, 90%, 95%. It makes sense now to start putting money behind this. So I wouldn't recommend doing this until you kind of got this established, got everything sort of working on the back end. You've got something that works predictably and is all dialed in and ironed out. And then you've obviously got the budget to invest in advertisement, which, we've got all these things, and, you've got to speculate to accumulate and take a bit of risk. So I'm willing to invest money in advertisement. Facebook ads obviously work. We've already tested it initially and they've worked. We've had some clients already, in a short space of time from ads, with a small budget as well. So it's kind of proven to me like this is the thing. So I just want to run through some pros and cons of Meta ads or Facebook ads. So why I really like the idea of using Meta ads is because the targeting, you kind of leave it up to Meta, Facebook, to do the targeting for you through their algorithms, through their AI systems. And it's extremely good at putting your specific ads, your niche ads, in front of the right people. It's very clever and finds the exact people that you're looking for. And you don't really, now at least, maybe you used to in the past, but now you don't really need to do anything in terms of targeting. Meta, Facebook will find those people for you because they want to get you results, because the better they perform for you, the more you're going to stick around on their platform and continuing to pay them money. So it's within their interest to get you results, because it's going to keep you as a long-term customer and continue to pay them. That's like how they make, or partly how they make their money. So it's in their interest to have really good targeting systems that work. So that's one thing. The second thing is, like, it is relatively simple to run Facebook ads, at least to get started. Obviously you need to know the software and like some key things and whatnot, but compared to the system that you need for running like cold email, it's just so much easier. So like less complexity, less moving parts, if you like, less manual work. So, you're not cold calling people necessarily. You're not DMing people. It's kind of a different dynamic. Like, people have seen your ad. They like self-identify that I am that person. I have that desire or problem. I'm interested in learning more. And then, and then if they book in to have a conversation with you, then you can explain things to them, and it's a much nicer conversation than someone that feels like they've been, pestered, not pestered because they wouldn't, that probably might be why some of the guys didn't show up when we were cold calling. Maybe they felt pestered and they just said, yeah, cool, I'll jump on a call with you just to get rid of us. But again, that just comes down to skill set and experience and understanding. But the dynamic's different. They're seeing something and then they are taking the time because it's piqued their interest to kind of like reach out to you or book a call with you. So that's nice as well. It's easily scalable. So, you put, it's too early for me to give specific numbers here, but like, let's say that you put, you spend $100 or pounds a day and it gets you, 3 sales a month or whatever. And it gets you, however many people opting in, and then that translates to like whatever. So it's easy to scale and it's predictable, like money in, return on ad spend out, whatever that is. I don't know what that is yet. It's too early, but it's scalable, it's predictable. Once you have winning ads, winning creative, and like the proven sales process after people do opt in and do book a call with you. And obviously, as I mentioned, like this works really well if you're also putting out regular social media content, which we are, because if you think about like the client journey, if you've ever seen an ad from someone, or I think about this, if I see an ad from someone, like I might not opt in immediately. I might be like, oh, that's interesting. Let me Google them. Let me see if they've got a YouTube. So let's go to their website. Let me go to their YouTube. Let me see if they're on Instagram, LinkedIn. And then you just get a much better feel. You look, you all these different areas, you look at them and you make a judgment on them. And then you're like, yeah, well, maybe I actually do want to have a conversation with these people, or, maybe I do want to opt in to the next time that I see the ad, because I know that I feel that they have got value to provide and they can help me solve my problem or get me to where I want to get to. So with us doing like YouTube videos and Instagram stuff and all the rest of it, like I think that coupled with ads is a good strategy, because it's going to, increase trust. It's going to show people that, we do know what we're talking about, that we are established, that we have got value to provide, and we can, possibly help them. So those are kind of like the initial pros that I see. There's probably loads more. Now let's get into the cons. And again, I'm sure there's loads more cons as well. It's early days, but yeah, so you need to kind of accept that you're going to lose money to start with during the initial testing phase. Like Facebook needs to, or Meta needs to have time to learn. Like it needs some time and money to sort of like go and test this part of the market with this ad, test this part of the market, this type of avatar. So it needs some time and some money to be able to do that. So you've kind of got to accept that you're maybe going to lose money early on, to give Facebook Meta the time to learn. And there's this like train the pixel, they say, so it's getting data, and the pixel is the thing. I'm not even going to try and explain the pixel because I don't know. It needs time to learn and understand your market and who are the people responding. So you need to just accept that you're going to lose money to start with, which is a little bit tricky to do, especially when you're not seeing any results. You're not seeing anyone opt in. You're not seeing like anyone book a call to have a conversation. That's a little bit hard not to get emotional. And then like when you get emotional, you just then make silly decisions where you might like just stop spending in this campaign because you haven't seen results. And it might have been, if you'd left that for another week or a couple of days, that it might have had enough time to learn, and then you might start seeing some results. And one, this is the thing, like say you spend £100 a day for a week, and then one person opts in, and then you get a sale from that, depending on the sale, like that might turn into like a good return on investment. But because you didn't give it a long enough time to run, it never had the opportunity to do that. So that could have been a winning campaign, but because you got emotional, you stopped things too soon, and yeah, you never gave it enough time to fully run its test. It's definitely, I would say, like you're spending money here, so it's worth investing in training and coaching on how to run ads, which is what I've done. A part of this mastermind group, I'm getting advice and guidance from people that have spent like tens of millions of dollars on Facebook and Instagram and are running ads for like some real big businesses. So yeah, I'm sort of like, they're helping helping me with decision making around that. So I definitely recommend doing that, or have some experts run them for you initially, but make sure that you're learning from them. So maybe you work with a marketing agency, but with the idea of bringing that in-house over time. The other thing that's a bit annoying for us, not so much because we've been doing this for years and like this is what we do, is you've got to come up with like creative, and then you've got to like create images or videos, not depending on how large you are and how much you scale, but relatively regularly. Because what happens over time is there's something what's known as ad fatigue. So your ads just fatigue and people see them over and over again, and then they just don't respond to them. It's just like, there's nothing new. I'm bored. I've seen that all before. So you've got to like develop new creative, coming at things from a different angle. Maybe you hit on a different problem or pain point or desire. So you've got to be iterating and creating with this over time. You can't just create one ad and then that's it, done. You need to do this consistently over time. So that's kind of like meta ads, pros and cons, how I see it and how I see it sort of working for us in the future. Feeling really positive about them, which ties off the struggles section, and is finally the thing that I feel confident in using to help us scale. Like that it is predictable, that's scalable. We put units in, we get certain units out, which has given me the confidence to actually grow our team and get 2 sales guys on board. Now that we've got that predictable, controllable lead gen system. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. In mid-December, we've just taken on 2 new sales guys who both on Eastern time zone, so US time zone, which is great because we're going to be running ads in the UK and the US. And when it was just me on the calendar, like I was just on UK time zone till about 5 p.m, which meant that all people in the evening after work, in the UK couldn't necessarily speak to me. And then people on other time zones like America, like Australia, like we would speak to some of them, or I would speak to some of them, but like there wasn't many opportunities for them to book in at convenient times. And if they did book in, it was inconvenient times for them. It was like really late at night or early in the morning. So we've got a lot more calendar availability now with the 2 new guys that we've taken on, so we can have more conversations with people and potentially help, look at helping more people. So that's really exciting. So that's ultimately what we're going to be doing moving into 2026 January, is start running meta ads in the UK and the US, and we've got a lot more capacity with our 2 new sales guys who I'm very excited to have on the team. So yeah, and it kind of just rounding things off, like 2025 has been probably one of the toughest years of my life in terms of business. Like I've been in business in some capacity or another for probably about 10 years now, and this has definitely been the toughest year that I've ever experienced. I've burnt out twice. Like burnout is a real thing, and the first time that I burnt out was for about a week in February, where I just had to just take a week off. And I think that was due to, and it was kind of like I couldn't really plan for it. It was just like, I need time off. Like I can't continue. I need to just like have a break from things. And I think that was just caused through like adjusting to dad life, with I've written here family pressures, but not that they're pressures. It's just, what it's like having a young family and wanting to be around, but then trying to balance that with like the pressures and the time demands of a business. And back then in February when I burnt out, not having 100% confidence and clarity around our offering. So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty, which led me to burn out and just like needing to take a week off. And then the second time I burnt out was more recently in September, where I took like 2-3 weeks off, and that was like, yeah, I mean, I was running on fumes for most of August and September, I'd say, and it just came to a head where I couldn't even make decisions. I was just like sat there trying to think through things, and I just couldn't, and I was miserable, and it was affecting, you know, home life, and like I was not having good conversations with people on sales calls. I was just in a state of complete burnout, and yeah, not in a good place. So I just had to basically call it, which was really difficult, you know, without, it was just loads of things going through my head, like should I take a time off, should I not, like, anyway, I just called it, and I'm glad I did. I just made the decision without feeling too guilty that I actually need, if I don't do this, like something bad's going to happen, and it, you know, at the detriment of my health or the health of the business. So I just had to call it and take those 2 or 3 weeks off in September, because I was just spread far too thin. Like, that obviously people that have families, they know, like, you have far less time, and when you're working in the business, you know, doing sales calls, like you're doing the marketing, you're trying to develop these lead gen systems, you're also creating social media posts, content, videos, and, you know, not only filming them but like thinking about them. You're coaching people and training people in the program. You're doing program development, you're changing these offers, and you're also running the lead gen systems and doing lead gen. Like, you're just stretched, you spread so thin, like just doing tasks within the business whilst also trying to work on the business. So you're trying to think about like the strategy, you're trying to make decisions, you know, you're trying to work out what the right lead gen system is and then how to implement it. So it's like, yeah, that just all got on top of me, and I just stopped being able to think and make decisions, and just was miserable basically. So that was actually one of the best decisions I made this year, is rather than trying to continue through that, I just called it without feeling guilty, and I had 2-3 weeks off. The first week I just slobbed on the sofa. I was just watching Lego stuff on YouTube. I don't know why, you know, going for walks, just chilling out, spending time with my daughter on occasions. Yeah, that was a really good decision. I'm glad I made that decision. And throughout this year, like the amount of times that I've had the thought of just packing this all up, you know, and just going back to being a full-time engineer, like I've had that thought so many times, because you start to lose hope, you're burnt out, you don't have the energy, you can't think straight, it's hard to find the motivation just to carry on. And the thing is, like, it wouldn't have been because we financially were in a bad spot. It would have been purely not down to me mentally, just feeling like I can't do this anymore, because there's so much pressure and so much responsibility, and I didn't want that anymore. And like, when you're trying all these things to try and scale and take some of the load off you, you know, in terms of finding this predictable lead gen system to be able to fill a salesperson's calendar so you can get back some of your time, that whole process, almost finished me off in terms of my mental capacity and being able to continue doing that. Yeah, so that was one thing. And then obviously having a young family, young daughter who's 1.5 in January. So like adjusting to dad life throughout that time whilst running a business. I mean, my wife Claire is amazing and has been really supportive in that. So like, God knows what it's like for people that are running businesses who don't have supportive, you know, wife or significant other. You know, I mean, that would put a huge amount of strain on our relationship if she wasn't as amazing as she is and as supportive as she is. Yeah. So yeah, lessons. I've got a section here on lessons. This video is going on for a bit, isn't it? Not long left. So yeah, lessons. Like, cash is so important in a business. Like, you want to be just prioritizing getting cash and cash reserves into your business, because it gives you breathing space. It reduces some of the worry, and it stops you being desperate and competing on price and, you know, racing to the bottom basically. So building up a cash reserve is so important, because it also allows you to buy time to think, you know, because there's periods where you work in the business, you have to, but then when you need to work on the business, like you need time to think and strategize. And if you don't have a pot of money or cash in the business, you're continually having to work in the business, doing revenue generating activities, whether it's, as an engineer on site, whether it's doing designs off site or, doing sales like I've been doing. So yeah, like having cash just allows you, when you need time to work on the business for say a week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month to do higher level stuff, like you can without worrying about, running out of cash and then not being able to pay employees or contractors or yourself, and then the implications of that, not being able to pay bills or provide. So I just advocate for people to build up a pot of cash as quickly as they possibly can to give them that thinking space, that breathing space. And like you have to work in the business before you can work on it. And you should, unless you're a big, massive corporation, like I think you as a small business owner, as you're scaling up, like you need to do everything within the business to understand it, so you can like impart, firstly understand it. If anything scales back, you can do everything within the business and the business isn't going to break. If you have to downsize, you can still do that. But also so you can actually effectively teach people and mentor people, like as you're scaling up and bringing new people in, like where you can be like a good teacher to the people that are helping you scale the business, like because you've been through it before, you understand it, and like you can bring them up to speed much quicker, and that, like you want them to be better than you can bring them up to like this 80% mark where you're at, and then they can like develop that final 20%. So it's it's in your interest to understand things for not only for your employees or contractors' sake, but for like the business's sake. A good quote that I heard recently, it's a Hormozy quote, and he says like, it's painful trying to grow, it's painful stagnating, I'm paraphrasing slightly, it's painful stagnating, and it's painful shrinking. So because you imagine, like, it's hard trying to scale and it's painful, and it's hard if you've stayed stagnated at the same level, for over a period of time. Maybe you want to grow but you can't, and then it's hard when you're shrinking, you're diminishing. Like, it's all hard, it's all painful. So you just kind of have to accept that any stage in business is painful and difficult. So it's like, it's easier said than done. Like, it's easy for me to say this like now, but when you're in the thick of it, it's hard. But it's important to put things into perspective. So something that I've realized, and through my wife kind of highlighting this to me, but like we watch programs like Ambulance, where you get to see what it's like for some people that are going through an even shitter time of their life, and how they're coping with things. And things could always be a lot worse, and like you see some of these people going through much worse, and they're coping with it and they're getting by. So that really helps put things into perspective. And also I think watching, I find like cosmology programs, like things about the universe, where you actually just the scale of it, and how insignificant we are, and our planet is. And like, just, I'm starting to get tired now, I can't really formulate my ideas, but you get my point. Like, it's putting things in perspective, and things like that really help to do that. I've always also learned how important a team is, and how grateful I am to have like such a great team, because you're never going to be able to scale a business on your own. So you gotta build a good team and have good people around you that you respect and that see what you're trying to do and on board with that. And you have periods, I think, where you do plateau, or at least certainly this year for us, where you have periods where you plateau, certainly when you're limited in terms of resources and people, where you're wearing multiple hats, you can't do absolutely everything. So sometimes things are going to have to give. You can't focus, all of your attention on one thing. So you're going to go through times where you're like growing, and then to be able to get to that next level, you're going to grow, and then like sort of like start flattening off. To get to that next level, you might have to actually go down and shrink for a bit, where perhaps you're not focusing on one thing, you're putting energy and time into another thing, like putting systems in place, like hiring people, getting them trained up. before you can then get back up to where you were and then go to the next level. So sometimes it's like you need to take one step back to take 5 steps forward, but it's tough when you're going through that, when you're in it, to see that as it is. And it's, with hindsight, you can look back and see that that's the case, but when you're in it, it's difficult too. But no, if you carry on, you keep going, it's kind of necessary sometimes. And like the other thing here is like, I think it's kind of like a game business. Like you just end up realizing that it's a bit of a game. It doesn't really matter. You're learning all these skills. What's the worst that could happen? Really, that you go out of business, but you could also go into business again. So I think like, taking calculated risks, and you're never going to know what's on the other side of some of these calculated risks. And that's why it's necessary to take these calculated risks to see what is on the other side of it. And what I found is, not every time, but like, if you keep doing this, and you obviously don't do it to such an extent that puts you out of business, but eventually you'll find the unlock, that does enable you to get to the next level, whether it's like revenue wise, whether it's like limiting beliefs, like you as an individual sort of learning. Like there was always something. I'm starting not to make sense because I've been talking too long. I'm not a talker. I should have maybe split this into 2 videos. The other thing here is listening to people with more insight than you. So the people that are in this business mastermind, like trusting their perspective, to help you make decisions, and then actually listen to them and implement those systems. Like there's no point investing in people, guidance, mentorship, coaching, if you're not actually then going to trust what they say and implement what they say. A good example's Chris, who I used to work with at Loxon, who's also in this business mastermind, who runs a business now called Freedom Flow Marketing, who was the one that really encouraged me to start running meta ads. He said something along the lines of, look, I know if you just start running ads, like you'll absolutely crush, mate. Because he understood how ads works, like with our specific offer, and how like Facebook can sort of find those people in our specific niche. And like he was right from what I can see after this early phase of testing. And so, but it was because I trusted his perspective, his insight, what he knows about, from his experience running ads. And so he's actually helping me with all of this, which I'll make another video another time about. But it was through trusting him and his perspective that's led me on to actually running ads, and then seeing like, this is the thing, this is the unlock. And like this whole process of business it seems like it's a lot of testing. You're testing things. You're then iterating on that thing. You then, once it kind of like you've iterated it to a point that's, good enough, you then kind of systematize that process. You document it into a standard operating procedure, of which you can then hand over to someone, buy back some of your time, and have them run that thing, whatever that thing is, that's going to enable you to then scale, buy back your time, and then maybe focus on the next thing. So testing that, iterating that, systemize that, documenting it, and then handing that over. And it's kind of like a repeatable thing that you keep doing, and it keeps enabling you to scale and getting to that next level. So yeah, final 2 things. We're almost at the end of the video. I just wanted to give the people in my team a shout out, because they've been amazing. We wouldn't be where we're at without this amazing team that we've got. First person is TJ, that's been with me pretty much from not the start, but like pretty early on. That helps with all the social media stuff, video editing, graphics, managing social media, but also now sort of moving more into like a marketing role. Jen, who I worked with years ago as a controls engineer, and said to her back then, like this was 5 years ago or something, that she would be amazing at ops. Like she's just like operations through and through. Can't remember what role she was doing now, but it wasn't operations. So yeah, Jen's on board has been on board for like the last year, focusing on doing lots of different things, to be fair, but more operations, running the business, but also doing some lead gen and sort of managing things and managing people. Now, more recently, so that's kind of like the core team, me, TJ and Jen. And then more recently, we're working with a contractor called Noah, who's more in a part-time role, and he's helping us with some of the marketing. So specifically at the moment, like copywriting. So emails that you see go out, if you're on our email list, those emails that go out, they're written predominantly by Noah with like some guidance from me, and based on like previous emails and things that I've done, content that I put out. So Noah helps us with like the copywriting. He's also going to start helping us with like some of the ad copy as well. And then the two new sales guys that I'm really excited to have on board are Jackson and Casey. So Jackson's a guy from New Zealand who's on Eastern time zone. He's doing like the traveling thing at the moment, but he's on like Eastern US time zone. And then Casey is a Canadian who lives in Colombia, and he's also on Eastern time zone. So they're going to be sort of about to have conversations with people that are interested in potentially getting help, getting into the industry, growing their businesses and progressing their careers. So that's the team. Really grateful to all of them. And then the final thing really is 2026 strategy. It's probably pretty obvious. Meta ads in the UK and the US, coupled with organic. So now I'm going to be able to buy back some time. Now we've got Jackson and Casey to help out with the sales. It's going to give me more time now to focus on the creative of these ads, to also put more effort into like organic videos, because these have taken a massive hit over the last year. I haven't had the energy or time to put into making good organic YouTube videos. So that's going to be improved over the next year. And then we're also going to be focusing specifically on our free community, and running maybe some free live workshops in there, and ultimately growing and scaling. So maybe bringing some more people into the marketing, scaling up the sales team. And then as we get more clients, we're going to then want to be able to support those clients with like coaching, support and training. So we'd probably look at bringing in some coaches, consultants in specific technical areas, BMS, controls, automation, smart home, but also perhaps on the business side in terms of like sales, marketing, etc., to relieve some of the demands from me, like coaching in all of these areas, and to provide more coaching calls and support within the community, which will then leave me more time to really continue developing the product and the service, adding more trainings, and giving our clients more of what they're asking for. So yeah, that was this year in a nutshell. Yeah, see you later.